does computers information align with how the world revolves? What are the information policies?
Hmm.
What's how does society is impacted by technology?
Hello and greetings, Chalenge Masekera, and welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Challenge and I have come a long way, all the way from the University of Zimbabwe, where we met when we were doing our undergraduate studies. But I'm going to talk with Challenge about quite a number of things. Challenge has a background in artificial intelligence. He has consulted for big organizations like Salesforce. And right now, he will talk more about his story, but in particular, we will share some highlights of what he thinks, artificial intelligence, as it's commonly known, AI, is going to affect personal finance and investing. Also, his experience of how he has managed to land those,
Yeah.
very, prestigious jobs, and also his experience living in the United States and traveling around the world. My friend Challenge, welcome, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
All right. Thank you, Isaac. It's a pleasure being here. Honored to be here. I've watched you grow this podcast and this your account like for the past couple of months and year.
Yeah,
So it's really, really nice to see and be here to be able to share my journey. I think we've talked multiple times about this.
for
So
sure.
I'm happy to be here and like excited to talk about it.
I'm excited. And when I was in New York in March this year, I had a chance to also, meet with Challenge. So he's my very good friend and supporter. So Challenge, do you want to tell us about what you currently do for work?
Yeah. But I think maybe we can start from the back. Like,
Sure.
as you mentioned, like, yeah, we met in Zimbabwe, like at the
Yes.
UZ. It
Mhm.
sounds like a really, really long time now. Like, we talked about, what do we call it? Baghdad. That hostel we used to
Yes.
live with. Um, and I remember we used to share classes because I kind of my special area now is like AI. But
Mhm.
before then, I kind of which kind of like will align to how I say my journey. It's like I've
Yes.
always sort of been interested in computer science. Like once I started learning computers, I was like, oh wow, this is what
Hmm.
how my brain works. This is what I want to do. But
Hmm.
then I always felt like I just don't want to be using computers writing programs. I
Hmm.
actually wanted to do something that's associated to business and like so. That was
Hmm.
sort of my undergrad degree in UZ, like it's called business studies and computer science. So like
Hmm.
what is the exact intersection of business and computer science and how
Hmm.
do businesses become better in terms
Hmm.
of performance based on computer science?
Yes.
So yes, yeah. Then so it kind of worked that like whilst I was still in Zimbabwe, like my first job, like one of my friends recommended me, um, was to start business intelligence, which is sort of
Hmm.
like the journey of like from AI. So business intelligence is sort of
Hmm.
like the first part of like, data.
Hmm.
Once you have data in your business or any kind of system,
Hmm.
is you have data. What can we learn about the data? So
Yes.
it focuses more on the sort of like the prehistoric, like, oh, how many cells did we have? Like, what did we learn about the cells we had, or like
Hmm.
the HR? So that was sort of like my first job in Zimbabwe. I was kind of like a pioneer in that.
Hmm.
Um, like I worked with companies like OK, like Econet, ZB Bank, setting up their
Hmm.
business intelligence systems.
Lovely.
Um, yeah, for a little bit.
Hmm.
Then after a while, after you like, okay, you keep telling people like, oh, this is what happened, they'll ask the next question is like, what's going to happen next?
Yes.
So this is where sort of like my journey into AI kind of sort of like started. I
Hmm.
think what kind of inspired me, I learned about this story of like it's called like a stinky cheese. Like
Hmm.
when I was okay, there
Hmm.
was this one of the sort of like seminal like papers or sort of like foundations in consulting in sort of
Hmm.
like data science. Like
Yes.
was there was a there's a store actually it's based in the US.
Hmm.
It's a it's a show. They have like thousands and thousands of things.
Hmm.
So at some point they were like trying to optimize what they had in the store. Then they were like, oh, they hired consultants. Consultants were like, oh, there's this thing that you have, why do you
Hmm.
have it? And
Yes.
they're like, oh yeah. Then they looked at the sales. They were like, oh, this doesn't really,
Hmm.
help much to the bottom line. So they
Hmm.
removed that thing from the store. A couple
Hmm.
months later, the sales started tanking. And
Hmm.
then they were like, what is
Mm,
going on? What happened? So then they hired more consultants again
mm,
to figure out why their sales had gone. So then they did like it's called market basket analysis to like look at
mhm,
like every basket that somebody buys, like what's in that shop, why are
mm,
people? Then they realized before they
mhm.
removed the stinky cheese,
Uh-huh.
almost everybody had that stinky cheese. So even
Oh,
though it was like maybe $1 or whatever, actually
mm,
people were coming to that shop mostly because of that. So then that like kind of blew my mind. I was just like, what? This sounds very intelligent and very
mhm,
interesting.
mhm.
So I started looking to like how I can get into actually data science and AI. And I
Yes.
ended up at Berkeley doing it's called information management system. I'll post
Mhm.
there then even.
Yes, definitely. I'm gonna follow up on that because you and I we have a lot of common things in that. You also got the Mastercard Foundation scholarship. Thankfully that financially supported your studies at Berkeley. Do you want to tell us about that experience at Berkeley? You studying Bachelor of Business Studies and Computer Science in Zimbabwe, and
Yeah.
you pivoting into your studies in the US, particularly in Masters in Information Systems.
Yes, yeah, it's actually one of my fun stories because there was what I was like at some point when I realized like what I wanted to do in Zim was really hard and I needed like sort of, back then like 10, 15 years ago, like internet in
Mhm.
Zim was really bad. So I had to like once in a while stay in the office, download when everybody's gone, like read what. But I was just like at some point I need this, the actual to go into school to actually learn this.
Mhm.
So I started looking for PhD program in like computer science
Mhm.
and I was like, because mostly because again, if you're from Zimbabwe, you don't have the
Mhm.
money, you don't have the fundings, and like usually
Mhm.
PhDs are better funded versus like a
Mhm.
master's program. So that was
Yes.
sort of like my focus, like in terms of what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
But then luckily, I think it's one of those things where, once you set your goal, you need to
Mhm.
find those connections. And I signed up for the USAP program
Mm.
in Zimbabwe, but as a grad student. And they would
Mhm.
like once in a while send you an email. It's like, hey, this is what's happening this week. And one
In the
of those,
US. Mhm.
yeah, or like at the center in Zimbabwe, like one of these days, like, oh, there's somebody from Berkeley coming to talk about how to apply for grad school. And
Mm.
let me just come and go and see, what they're talking about. I'll learn something. I didn't think
Mhm.
I'll get into Berkeley because, Berkeley is super competitive.
Yes.
Uh, but then I listened to them talk. Then they were like, at the end, oh, there's a scholarship we're offering for
Mm.
grad students, and this is the flyer. I looked at the
Mm.
flyer and I saw the program, and I went to her and I was like, this is my program. I'm
This is
coming.
my program.
Yeah. And that's sort of like, then I was like, okay, this is actually aligns. I went on the website, looked at it, like it's called the School of Information, and
Mhm.
it's sort of like perfectly aligns. I like to do computer science. I like to program. I like all of those things, but I also want to know, what exactly is computers, what is information, and not just tech world, but also how does it impact society, not just
Mhm.
businesses, but like how does computers information align with how the world revolves? What are the information policies?
Mhm.
What's business? How does society impact, is impacted by technology? So that's the
Mhm.
how I ended up at Berkeley and started learning, sort of like sending my education. But
Mhm.
again, like I always loved data science, so it kind of stayed in that.
Align. Mm, fantastic. And I know you went to Kenya to for your internship, and then when you completed, you will eventually worked for Salesforce and your current role. Do you wanna walk us through like how did you get those kind of like jobs? Because at some point you were a manager, at
Yeah,
Salesforce. And Salesforce, for those who don't know, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, because it's a whole lot of history, but I'll breeze. I think so. Like my program at Berkeley was 2 years, and
Mm-hmm.
like in between, like during the summer, when everything is closed, most people find an internship, and that
Mm-hmm.
was just like uh I think I would wanna. I was still focused on trying to go back to Africa back then,
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I've been in Zim, like what's the next sort of like popping tech space that's happening, and Kenya happened to be. So I
Mm-hmm.
just started looking for opportunities, and I found this opportunity at like a NGO, a nonprofit. So
Mm-hmm.
there was like a very interesting research topic, like sort of like based on sort of like election violence. Like they were trying to see how we can use machine learning to predict violence based on what
Mm-hmm.
people are posting on Twitter. So
Mm.
it has been a hellhole from since time immemorial. But like,
Yes.
it was such like, yeah. So it was just a fun project. I did it for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then after that, I came back, completed my grad school program. Then I
Mm-hmm.
started looking for opportunities. My first job, actually, I didn't stay that long. It was more of like I think I still have that, how do we use technology for like, impactful societal things. So I worked for like an education startup, also
Mm-hmm.
trying to use they use sort of like now, instead of having a human tutor,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm.
you can like use computer science and AI. And like what the problem we're trying to solve is like, instead of always saying if somebody, how do we use machine learning to
Mm-hmm.
give the student better questions to practice?
I
Such
see.
that if they're really smart, we find the most complicated ones to test them. If they're
Mm.
struggling, we tune back, the questions instead of just saying, oh, question one is this, question one, second.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Then I was still like, looking. Then somehow I bumped into the Salesforce opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the team, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
They were like at the pioneering start of like what's called Salesforce Einstein, which is
Mm.
sort of AI part of Salesforce.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, Salesforce is it came out like as what's called a customer relationship management system.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Basically, Salesforce manages the data of pretty much almost every business in the US or like even abroad.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
how do you have sort of a holistic view of your customer? Like, oh, you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell to somebody,
Yes.
they call the sales lead. So what was the sales part of it? But then they
Mm-hmm.
were also expanding that into marketing. Like, how do you sort of like send emails to people?
Mm.
And or even service management is like, oh, somebody opens a case with your product and it's like, oh, there's something. How do you respond? So they sort of like manage that whole sort of like 360 view of the
Mm-hmm.
business.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem we were trying to solve there, which because Salesforce is pretty complicated in terms of like, because they are very particular about customer data.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike, other companies where like, Facebook, how you click the pictures, they all belong to Facebook. But for Salesforce, they're very strict about it. The
Mm-hmm.
data still belongs to the customer. So in terms
Mm-hmm.
of a machine learning problem, normally if you're building like ad algorithm, you just use all of the data that you have in your system. But for
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce, because the customers, they don't
It's
want
their
the data.
data. Privacy.
They don't
Yes.
want the data, yeah, data privacy. They don't want the data cross-pollinated with other customers. Sometimes they are their competitors, so they don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
to have the machine learning. So it was a very interesting and complicated. So we kind of
Mm-hmm.
went through the motion of building this, or one of the first sort of like it's called multi-tenant machine
Mm-hmm.
learning models, where every specific system is built on the customer's data.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, what you do when you're building a sort of like an AI or data system, like somebody was manually looking at the data and saying, "Oh, I think we
Mm-hmm.
need to tune this so that it will become more predictive." But if
Mm-hmm.
you have hundreds of customers, 1,000 customers,
Mm.
each of them who want a model built for their very specific needs, you can't scale it. You can
Yes.
hire all the data scientists in the world, but you can't
Yes.
scale. So we're building this like, so it's called an automated machine learning, where we teach computers to
Mm.
be data scientists. So that was sort of like the breakthrough, the innovation.
Mm. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. Only 31% of the people who tune in to watch this podcast, they are subscribed. So I want to encourage you to please subscribe so that this content can reach far and wide. Thank you again, and may the markets be with you. Very interesting. And now somebody might be, listening to this from, some parts of the world. What would you say like has been like maybe the drivers, or something that you'd say the skills or something that has helped you to land on those kind of jobs, because it's pretty competitive, and right
Yeah.
now you're currently working at the Faros AI, doing something that you love.
Yeah.
What is there something that you can share with us?
So after Salesforce, I kind of spent 4 years there.
Hmm.
Then my manager went away, went like I was like, oh, I've done this. I want to start my own thing.
Yes.
So they then, I've been worked with these people for 4 years, and I was like, I really like these people, and they were
Mm.
like, oh, we actually like you, and
Hmm.
they kind of recruited me from Salesforce, which
Mm.
and so now I work for a very small company called Faros AI.
Hmm.
We now working on like how to make like we're like engineering transformation platform. We're
Mm-hmm.
helping since now with all AI and just like every company needs an engineering team.
Mm-hmm.
How do you transform your business to be an engineering team? And now with AI, how do you transform that? How do you provide visibility into
Mm-hmm.
how your engineering team is working and what are the drivers for their success? So that's what we're working, and we're working on machine learning to be able to answer those questions and also be able to in the future, like, oh, these are the resources you need. We can build machine learning
Mm-hmm.
models for that. But sort of like back to your question,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the same way, like when, I think for you have to put yourself in
Mm-hmm.
places where you can actually get, I call it lucky,
Mm-hmm.
but which technically is, like in our whole team of like, I think maybe by the time we left, we're like, I joined that team when we were eight. By
Mm-hmm.
the time in Salesforce, by the time we left, we're like almost 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
But then if out of those 200 people, somebody is saying, in my first 10 people that I want to work with, I'm going to have this person.
Mm-hmm. Say something.
It says something. And for me, I just think, I don't know, maybe it's one of those immigrant genes or like, I'm here. What do you
Mm-hmm.
want me to do? I'll
Yes.
do that. I'll
Mm.
do whatever needs to be done. If
Yes.
you need to like go not do the thing that I don't like the most, I don't care. Like, I'm here for business. The companies hires you for a reason. It's about making money. They want you to be productive. And for me, I just like doing things. So
Part of the team.
I just want to be part of the team. I like finding those things that people don't want to do, and I'll do that.
Mm. That's fantastic. So, what is like a typical day for you? Like, what would that be like?
So yeah, and now it's also kind of different because we're a big company. The Salesforce was like 40,000 people. So you kind of have a little bit more structure. By the
Mm-hmm.
time I left, I was managing a team of like six people.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of know what you're doing. Like first thing, you
Mm-hmm.
run your meetings like, oh, where are we with this? Then you go more meetings to just get alignment around teams. But
Mm-hmm.
now for a startup, it's very different. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was like, I always have an itch for doing things. And with a startup,
Yeah.
we're still small.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no technically typical day.
Yes.
It's whatever, we're fighting for our lives every
It's
day.
evolving. Yes.
It's
You're
evolving
always on
every
your
day.
toes.
They're always on the toes. And I kind of enjoy, like, I wouldn't call
Agree.
it the stress, but like, I just enjoy like having to like, oh, this is what we do. And,
Mm-hmm.
because we're smaller,
Mm-hmm.
um, we kind of get alignment much faster.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just go like, if I need something, you're like, we want to build something, I go talk to, I just drag the three people who need to make the decision. Like, hey guys, let's talk through, or like, a team, let's
Yes.
talk through it, and we talk
Yes.
about it. So that's kind of how we operate. But like typically, at
Mm-hmm.
least, which is kind of in most sort of like tech settings, especially the technical part, it's
Mm-hmm.
usually in the morning, you have what's called the stand-up, which is like everybody comes together for, usually it's supposed to be very short, like 15 minutes, to talk
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what I worked on yesterday, this is what I'm working on today.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that are blocking me.
Mm-hmm.
If then you just go through your updates. It's literally supposed to be done standing up so that you all just talk fast and you're not in the meeting. Then after
Mm-hmm.
that, you break off either if you have a very technical job that's like requires to be coding, that's what you do for them. Then there'll be meetings in between.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, but yeah, so it's kind of structured like that. But for
Mm-hmm.
us, it's a small company. There's fires everywhere, or like some days are just like oh, there's something broken. We all huddle up. We do that.
Yes.
Somebody told me,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're the most brilliant person or like one of the top, you just have to stand next to the biggest pile of.
Mm-hmm. And now this is very interesting challenge. So now you work remotely and you're based in New York, right? And
Yes.
you can pretty much work from any part of the world, I guess. But I wanted to know, so what do you see AI, like at the intersection of personal finance and investing? What do you think? Do you think AI is gonna overtake or it's gonna be like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're putting me in a very tricky position because my
Yeah.
views are a little controversial,
Okay.
but I think we have to think about it in sort of like phases. I
hmm
think because there's a lot of doom and gloom
hmm
about like what AI is, and like I think there's phases of what AI is. We've
hmm
heard like AI for the longest time. Like if you've
hmm
ever been on a plane, that's
Yeah.
some version of AI.
Yes.
and
Autopilot.
autopilot, right? It's some version of AI. And have we seen a reduction of pilots? No, we
No.
actually had a shortage of that.
Yes.
So I think what you can think of, like what people are panicking about right now, it's sort of like this new, it's called like sort of like the generative AI. So
Mm.
previous AI was just like, it'll make predictions, whatever. But now the latest version since 2017 and like more prominent with ChatGPT was
Yes.
the sort of like generative AI,
Yes.
where like, you type something and it can give you a paragraph, it can give you
Yes.
like a recipe and whatever. So that
Yes.
was sort of like the new thing was like, oh, we now have this tool
Yes.
that can do all the things that we humans are supposed to be good at.
Yes.
So in terms of like, if you think of it like, AI is like any other tool,
Mm.
it's only going to get better. And
Mm.
what that's going to look like is going to change over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, sort of like what's AI to replace a human brain, not yet.
Yes.
We There are people working aggressively on that, but
Yes.
there's so many technical complications that we're gonna have to break through. I
Yes.
think at some point we're gonna get there, but we're
Yes.
still some time away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of personal finance, the
Mm-hmm.
AI that we have doesn't fully replace, financial
Finance
advice.
managers or like investment
Yes,
managers, hedge fund managers. Yeah.
yeah. So what I like to focus on is like AI on a personal level, or
Mm-hmm.
like AI on a personal level. It's like the things that like right now, if you are sort of like an individual investor or a retail investor,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we'll talk more about this later. But
Mm-hmm.
the things that are gonna like, previously you needed to scroll through the internet to if you want to
Yes.
learn about a company.
Yes.
Nowadays, you can just put in ChatGPT and Gemini and say, hey, can you tell me the results of what do you call it, whatever company?
Earnings for
Yeah,
Google or
yeah, anything, and
Nvidia. Yes.
it'll summarize those things.
Mm-hmm.
So what AI, like every other tool, gives you is time.
Yes. Time saving. Time saving.
That's time saving, and that's what we're all looking. How do we find time to do things that we
Mm.
care about or that actually matter to us? So
Yes.
one, you're gonna have like, you can make more smarter decisions in faster time because like AI will like, you can have like a summarize, like
Yes.
you can put a PDF of the earnings and it will summarize like into like five
Yes.
sentences
Yes.
and
What
instead
is
of
the
you
bottom
having,
line? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's one way to think of it. Then the other one is like sort of the democratization of like advising. You now have like
Yes.
robo-advisors, which
Yes.
can like, if you want, you can pay a fee and like, it'll pick the stocks for you.
Yes. And automated.
I automated stock finance picking, which is like, that's like another level of AI. So you don't have
Mhm.
to pay somebody and,
Those
I don't know
2%
how
fees.
yeah, I don't know how they perform. So I can't remember how they performed over time compared to like,
Mhm.
but I would assume they do better than humans.
They don't have
Um,
emotions, right? So if you just program to say, I want 10% on this particular sector and 10% on this, it
yeah,
can kind of like do that. As humans, I think the difference between, to an extent, why some investors fail is when the market drops, some people become fearful and sell. But
yeah,
as a machine, this can just, just to
yeah.
do that without fear. So I think that's a very interesting caveat there.
Yeah. Then the other sort of like more sort of like greater part is like, personalized finance. I
Mm.
think especially with cell phones now,
Yes.
we have all our data there. Like we're gonna get to a point where like, right now we have like AIs on like if you have an iPhone, there's an AI there, but it's
Yeah.
mostly like, predicting what you're gonna type. But
Yes.
we can get to a stage where like it can analyze all your transactions, all your debit cards,
Yes.
and every week it will say you're spending too much money on
On
this,
this.
or like your
Mm.
savings balance is too high. I think you should, divest
Mm-hmm.
some of it into this. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where like sort of the AI is going to get better and better. Like, those personalized finances that will actually,
Yes.
be able to tell you what's very specific to you.
Mm. I know we can talk more and more about this, so that's very interesting. Now, I know you have been living in the States for, I think, now close to a decade or even more, right? So,
Yeah.
what has that experience been? I know, I have had the privilege of, connecting with you, and we traveled in Los Angeles and we spent quality time just, having these conversations. What can you say someone who wants to go to the US, what has been your experience? Has it been transformational or not?
Yeah, I think it's been transformational beyond doubt. Like I think
Hmm.
I would, if anybody has the opportunity, I think
Yes,
you should at least try it. You know,
yes.
you don't have to commit to staying here forever. I think it's one of those things, in Shona, there's that saying, "Chitra chiru toga," which translates to,
Hmm.
you only learn new things if you travel and go somewhere. And I
Hmm.
think for me, being in the States has been sort of like life-changing in terms of like, everything, career,
Hmm.
finances, or even just the way I think about the world.
Hmm.
It's one of those that I think, if you get the chance, even not the US, but it's just somewhere different, you have to
Yes,
try and
yes.
do it. And I think I at least in our generation or lifetime, I think right now, the
Hmm.
States sort of where it's the biggest money basket in the world.
Yes.
For the most part, somebody told me, unless
Hmm.
you're the most brilliant person or like one of the top, you just have to stand next to the biggest pile of money. And and the spillover will come to you as well.
Exactly. Mm.
Yeah. So, and that's sort of like where we are. And now for like, I think, if it's called like, market dynamics will always beat, individual brilliance. Some of
Yes.
where we come, the markets are small. You can
Hmm.
make it,
Yes. The cake is smaller, and
yeah.
there are a lot more people, And I think something that you say that is profound, the challenge is that when I went to Oxford, at some point I got this diary, and one of the things that was written there was saying traveling is very interesting. It can turn you into a storyteller rather than just being someone who is just reading other people's stories, because there are different narratives out there.
Yeah.
So if you see the world, if you travel, you get to learn from other people. And also, one thing that I like to do, as you know, when I came to New York in March, I just wanted to go and walk next to the New York Stock Exchange. I wanted to go
Yeah.
to the finance district, because sometimes when I'm sitting on the computer here, some things
Yeah.
may not make sense. So sometimes when I actually physically visit those places, I I learn better, and I at least realize like, oh, this is actually real. So I very much
Yeah.
agree with you that. But a lot of people would say, well, it's expensive. How do you do this? But I've realized that people can always come up with excuses, but you have to kind of like think of ways to circumvent those challenges. So is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah. I think it's yeah, I think sort of like my, things that I'll think about is, I think, it's the world is big and
Yes.
just, try and, explore as much as you can. You have one life,
Yes.
do it the best you can. Try and, I think don't be stuck in like beliefs and views that like, oh, this doesn't work or that works.
Yes.
Go read, go travel if you can,
Hmm.
find things that actually, like keep exploring, keep, like
Hmm.
finding those opportunities. And if you're lucky and, sometimes, you put yourself in the places,
Mm.
where things happen, you'll
Yes.
get lucky.
Yes.
So I think it's just like, one of those where like, uh, find ways to make sure, you're valuable,
Hmm.
find ways to keep learning new things,
Hmm.
then take care of yourself,
Go to
save
the
money,
gym, save money.
go to the gym, eat healthy, don't spend too much time watching TV.
Mm. And you may not know that, one of the conversations that also had a profound impact on me, we were driving to Hollywood the other time. I came to connect with you sometime. And we were talking about a situation where sometimes people, when they find opportunities, they may hide to say, oh, if I share this opportunity, you may, take the scarcity mindset. And you said something that was profound, if you remember, Challenge. You said, the problem is like if the cake is bigger, like you said previously, right? there's no need to really fight over this because you can all cut your small part and we'll still have a bigger cake. So the idea is opportunities and possibilities are everywhere, are unlimited. So
Yeah.
sometimes when you are a bridge to other people's success, without even expecting them, people will always remember how you made them feel. And if they see other opportunities, they can even refer back to say, oh, I think this might be a good fit, thing for you, right? So I think that
Yeah.
was something you may not remember, but I took that, and each time that I get opportunities, I try to share with people. And I
Yeah.
always tell people to say, look, you also have to do some work. I can't be applying for
Yeah.
you for a job and stuff like that. If I share with you an opportunity, then see and read what is required. If you then have specific questions and you say, oh, can you review my resume, right? Then I can kind of like give my feedback. So I know you're a very busy person. I really wanted to appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much. And I hope the audience have learned quite a lot from these conversations. And I hope we'll bring you on the podcast soon. So thank you so much and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed doing this.
Yes, yes.